I actually hate that I like some of these Iceberg videos. You've probably been around long enough to know what these are. Why am I making one so late to the party? Well, I couldn't find a RWBY Iceberg video that was unrelated to the Weiss and Neptune ship. So I thought, hey, I'm late at everything, why don't I just do this now anyway? I was gonna do a Godzilla one instead, but there are videos on that, so instead I just spent an hour deconstructing one on my Discord server, which you can't access anymore, because I'm sick of dumb people jumping in and causing drama. So boo-hoo. Anyway, yeah, I'm doing this because I don't often get a chance to talk about dumb RWBY things that are unrelated to the story. So, yeah. I put the 4 I could find into a random number generator, and it landed on this one that was on Reddit. My favorite place in the world. Let's get going. We haven't touched the iceberg tier. Anti-Upskirt Technology refers to how in the earlier volumes, and even the modern ones, we don't get any upskirt shots because of the way the shirts are rendered. As you can tell, there's no way to see up the skirt because it's like a solid block. Thankfully, RWBY still hasn't decided to give us upskirt shots, but eventually they might. Team RWBY's Mother Curse is one that I wasn't really into. Like, I never really got into, like, parts of the fandom, so, to my knowledge, this was just a theory about the mothers of Team RWBY, which, like, I don't care about. I mean, maybe there's more to it, but this is something where, like, yeah, it's really high up, but it's actually something I know less about than most of what's lower in the iceberg, so this is just how out of touch I am. Dead Fantasy is an unfinished series mixing Dead or Alive and Final Fantasy, where they beat the ever-living hell out of each other, and it was animated by Monty Voiced Ren. It's actually quite good, so if you haven't watched it, I would recommend going to watch it. It's pretty cool. Remnant made from Ketchup is because originally the map of Remnant was based on some ketchup stains on a napkin Monty Voiced Ren was using at an IHOP one time. He later went back to that IHOP and squirted ketchup on a napkin, and he used that as reference to build the map of Remnant that we know today. RWBY Chibi, to show that Rooster Teeth did, and most people like it. Mojojoj, or Hajime Nakamura, was a RWBY fan artist that was hired later to create concept art for RWBY Chibi, and that's that, good on him. I don't know if he's still part of the RWBY crew, especially because RWBY Chibi hasn't had a season in fucking years. Maybe he is, I don't actually know. The Shadow People are a rather infamous part of the first volume of RWBY, where everyone in the background of scenes was rendered as a bunch of silhouettes with no features. This was later updated in Volume 2 to instead have a bunch of repeated models, but the repeated models at least look better than completely black silhouettes. RWBY Chibi even lampshaded this thing in one of their episodes. Redhead Hate, I believe, is just the observation that Pyrrha, Roman, Penny, and Adam are all redheads and all fucking died. But Nora didn't, and Penny came back, so who knows. And also Pyrrha's mum, that's I expect her mum, it could be her sister or something, is also not dead. Though it would be really funny if they had a scene where the statue fell onto the Pyrrha mother and she fucking died in volume. That'd be kind of funny. Monty Voiced Ren, he sure did. The RWBY Rex is an inside joke that appeared on Monty's Twitter account and then also made some cameos in some episodes of RWBY, namely in Black and White after Penny nukes 2 bullheads, extracurricular watching Pyrrha and Mercury fight, in the stands during the Battle of Beacon, and as a hood ornament in Cordially Invited. Team attacks named after ships is true. Ice Flower is named after RWBY X Weiss, Checkmate is Blake X Weiss, Bumblebee is you fucking know, Ladybug is RWBY X Blake, Freezerburn is Weiss X Yang, and the unseen Flower Power and Arcos are based on Ren X Nora and John X Pyrrha. And we never got one for RWBY X Yang because we're not... we're fortunate enough to not have that. Though Cannonball is the name given to the technique used by all 4 to take out the Nevermore, so I hope that team attack isn't named after Team RWBY having a gangbang. The tip of the iceberg! The Malachite twins, supposedly being Ruby and Weiss, is due to Monty on Twitter saying that Melanie and Milshire Malachite from the Yellow trailer were based on early designs for Weiss and RWBY, which, given how they look, I'm glad they didn't keep those designs, because they look not as good. Can You Match My Resolve is a quote from Monty that got big after his passing. The quote went, "Can you match my resolve? If so, then you will succeed. I believe that the human spirit is indomitable. If you endeavor to achieve, it will happen given enough resolve. It may not be immediate, and often your greater dreams is something that you will not achieve within your own lifetime. The effort you put forth to anything transcends yourself, for there is no futility even in death." It's not hard to see why this quote kind of exploded after he passed. Volume 7's end credits. Not a thing. This was the first time a Volume's finale didn't have an end credit scene. Though it's probably not that important to have one given Volume 1 and 3 are the only ones that have really mattered and also not been put entirely into the very next episode. Amity Arena card bios. This one feels kind of weird because it is a very vague thing to put on the iceberg. I'm not sure exactly what it refers to. It could either be the bits of lore that are given, for instance, it explicitly makes clear that Velvet can't copy semblances or anything, she can only copy weapons and dust abilities, or it could be that some bios like Hazel and Adams are written as overly verbose wastes of time that think themselves too important. Real world holidays celebrated in Remnant, I think, could be either some of the non-canon holiday celebrations involving RWBY characters that Rooster Teeth have done, or the 24th episode of the second season of RWBY Chibi, Nondescript Holiday Spectacular, where the characters celebrate a nondescript winter holiday unrelated to the birth of any messiah archetypes. Also ignore that some episodes of RWBY Chibi have characters say G's, which is a shortening of Jesus. Oops. Guns N' Roses. This is a horrible, nasty, painful ship of Ruby Rose x Crescent Rose, which is a gun. Just below the tip. Monty was going to voice Ozpin / Gavin was going to voice Junior. It's as it seems. Monty was originally going to voice Professor Ozpin instead of Lai Ren until he gave the role to Shannon McCormick, and Gavin Free was going to voice Junior Xiong instead of Jack Patillo. However, that squeak from Yang's ball bag burst bang is apparently still Gavin. Fan artist depiction of Blake. It's very horny. Screwattack accused of bias in Yang vs Tifa. Pretty obviously, this is referring to Yang beating Tifa in Season 2 of Death Battle, which a lot of people have assumed was bias as much as bad research. It could have been either, really. I don't really care. It was promoting the third volume of RWBY, so it could easily have been biased, because, you know, Tifa mops Yang, pretty obviously. Roman was supposed to be a minor villain. Roman was originally only going to appear in the first volume of RWBY, but because Monty, Miles, and Kerry liked him, they kept him. And that's good, because we all like Roman, right? Yang Boob Physics. Okay, so this one is because in the first 3 volumes of RWBY, but from my knowledge, mostly volume 1 and 2, the boob physics are kind of ridiculous, especially for Yang. Though when I think of weird, unfitting jiggle physics, I think of this scene with Weiss, who's supposed to have no boob, and Jesus Christ. Volume 2 end credits. The end credits of Volume 2 are probably the most infamous of all the end credits. The Volume 1 end credits introduce Cinder properly, as well as Emerald and Mercury. The Volume 3 end credits show off Qrow with Ozpin's cane. The Volume 4 end credits had Oscar and Qrow encountering, which was then used entirely in the first episode of Volume 5. Of which that volume's end credits was just Taiyang doing a thing and Raven is there but vanishes, and the Volume 6 end credits is Salem making some fucking flying monkeys because Wicked Witch of the West, lol. Volume 2, however, sees Yang completely out of nowhere and without any context, walking through Beacon, where she comes across Raven, whom she has never seen or heard before, who then takes off her mask and says they need to talk. The scene is very out of place, it never gets brought up again, and some people think it was even a dream. Even though Yang hasn't ever heard Raven before, like she's never heard Raven's voice, and likely hasn't ever seen her face, so Raven looking and sounding exactly like she does is weird, and Yang shouldn't have dreamt that. Though those dreams RWBY had about Pyrrha in Volume 4 were never brought back up again, so maybe dreams are just filler in RWBY. Who knows, who cares? It's a scene that, as far as I'm concerned, was retconned out of happening. Whole series has been planned all along my ass. Nearing the end. Rooster Teeth purging early volumes off of YouTube. This is something that happened fairly recently, where Rooster Teeth up and removed every single episode of RWBY from their channel, except for the very first episode of the series, which was to promote traffic to their fucking streaming app. Are you kidding me, guys? Roman originally had Fiona's semblance. This is true. Roman originally had this semblance, which was known as Deep Pockets, but it wasn't used because they didn't really have any time to show Roman using it, and eventually just decided he can be semblanceless, which is fine. I like Roman without a semblance, he's badass enough without one. So they renamed it Pocket Dimensions, which I don't think is as catchy as Deep Pockets, and they gave it to Fiona. Ruby was originally a Faunus. I haven't actually seen any proof confirming this to be the case, but I have heard it as a theory. The closest I can think to is that they wanted to give her grey hair originally to replicate the appearance of a wolf, but it was changed to black with red accents, which I prefer. Shane's letter. This was a, let's say, controversial little thing dropped by Shane Newville talking about his time with Monty in the workplace. I read it back when it first came out, and I don't remember much. I'm not going to read through like a 30-page document right now. But I think it said stuff like, people in the workplace only pretended to like Monty, but wanted to change the way the show was run to move away from him. Something about them unjustly kicking out Sheena Duquette Ohm, or however you say her name, despite her working with Monty from the beginning. I guess it's Sheena Duquette Ohm? and cutting out some scenes after Monty's passing because they didn't talk to Sheena or him about what the purposes were, like a scene of Raven attacking Juniper, I think was one of them. It was mostly something about Shane trying to paint everyone in Rooster Teeth that wasn't him, Monty, and Sheena as sociopathic bastards who wanted to steal away Monty's baby and corrupt it. I don't really want to go any further with this, but I'm hoping I'm not the only person who had a PTSD moment after seeing Shane's letter on screen. Dishwasher
1910
predicted PvP. I was there when this happened. Before the episode PvP premiered for first members, the episode where Pyrrha fought Penny ending with Pyrrha accidentally tearing Penny in half and cutting off one of Penny's arms, Dishwasher uploaded this. This was uploaded on January the 11th of 2016, 5 days before it happened in the show. And everyone lost their minds when the episode came out. It was like, you fucking predicted this? I think that there were a few other pieces of art during Volume 3 that predicted events in the volume that he made, and so people were saying that he's actually part of Rooster Teeth and he's like releasing concept art or something. I doubt it. Merlot Island Easter egg. This one is related to RWBY Grim Eclipse and refers to when I think Rooster Teeth said there was an environmental Easter egg in the level The Island of Dr. Merlot in Grim Eclipse. Apparently it was hard to find, and I don't know if it was ever found. I also don't care, but hey, if you know more about it, you can tell me. Goth Nora. This is Goth Nora, a character who kind of stood out as a background character in Volume 1, Episode 9, who was not a silhouette, and was Nora with blue hair, wearing Glinda's outfit, but black. Fucking weird, isn't it? Though while Goth Nora is cool, I am honestly partial to Ozpin pretending to be a student in Episode 3 of Volume 2, and RWBY transferring to Alice Academy in Volume 2, Episode 8. Though I have seen some art of Gothic Nora that's like, ooh, is that a Behemoth shirt? Fucking love Behemoth, not gonna lie. Halo sound effects in early RWBY volumes. I don't know why it says early volumes, because RWBY's Crescent Rose and Yang's Ember Celica sounds are still pretty much just the Halo shotgun and sniper. Have a listen. The bottom of the iceberg. The kingdoms are actually republics. This is referring to how the kingdoms, as they are called in RWBY, are not technically kingdoms. You see, a kingdom is a politically organized community with a monarchical government that is headed by a king or a queen, or a kingdom can refer to the region of a deity. Neither of these are the definitions of the kingdoms in RWBY. RWBY does not have kings or queens as of now, and the deities are nowhere to be seen. However, the kingdoms are actually republics, which are regions governed by people who are elected by the populace of that region. The kingdoms of RWBY are republics in the vein of Bosnia and Switzerland, where they are a committee of several presidential figures, those being the council. No fossil fuels in Remnant. This is in reference to the World of Remnant episode Cross-Continental Transit System, where they say space travel isn't possible because dust does not work outside of the planet's atmosphere. This would imply that things like fossil fuels do not exist on Remnant, as if fossil fuels were a thing, they'd be capable of achieving spaceflight. It's also possible that they do exist, but Remnant has just never found them. Because I guess people of Remnant are just stupid, and never thought that, oh, we can't get spaceflight, let's look for some alternate form of fuel that can work out in space. Dickheads! Technically, fossil fuels should exist because fossil fuels are formed from the process of anaerobic decomposition of organisms underground that release energy when they are combusted. So even with the magical gods creating the world, they should be a thing. Fossil fuel, unless the gods are making it specifically so fossil fuels can't exist. Though there is the possibility of the young Remnant theory, which would say that Remnant is only 10,000 years old, so it's not old enough to have fossil fuels. Tabletknight. I'm not sure why this is so low or what importance it has, but Tabletknight is an artist that does RWBY art. I'm not going to show you this art because it's maybe a little too risque for YouTube. You can look up Tabletknight on Twitter if you want. Horny. MMD. MMD is an animation software. It's Miku Miku Dance. And I assume that in relation to RWBY, it's the amount of MMD parodies that exist using RWBY characters, which there are a lot of. There's also people who say the animation is so bad that it is as if it was animated in MMD, which I'm not here to argue against. Cardboard Taiyang refers to the original upload of the first episode of Volume 3, where Taiyang did not have a model, but was just a PNG of the character under the trees, and it looks like shit. Oscar Hate edit of AikiYuns art. I don't know what the hate part of this is, but I think this is because of this art of Nora booping Oscar with her tits. I don't actually know entirely. Thomas, I'm also not sure on this one. Most of what I can find is RWBY and Thomas the Tank Engine crossovers, and I'm too afraid to look further into that. Cinder running on rooftops. This is the infamous Cinder roof run. I don't know why it's so low, given this is a very infamous scene. Qrow is RWBY's father. Similarly, I don't know why this one is so low. This theory is actually one of the biggest theories in the fandom, and it's very common. Even though I don't like it, like, why can't RWBY just take after her uncle? Why does the person RWBY take after have to be her dad? Do people think that there is something inherently wrong with a child taking after her uncle and not her father or mother? Do people think Qrow and RWBY's relationship would be inherently better if he was her father and not her uncle? I don't get that. Why do people not like uncles? Do you want Uncle Iroh to reveal to Zuko that he's actually Zuko's father? Some people probably do, but no, that's the takeaway so much, and it adds nothing. I should also say that, like, people are like, oh, but they have such similar aesthetics, he's got to be related. And it's like, no! They have similar aesthetics, because, well, first off, they don't have similar, like, like, facial features. Their facial features are very different. But, like, the only thing similar is that they have a cape that is red, which for RWBY is a combination of Qrow and Summers, because Summers her mother, and she takes after Qrow because she wants to be like Qrow, because he's cooler than Taiyang. This is not implying that Qrow and Summer fucked, and that's why it's a fusion. Any more than Takeda Takahashi from Mortal Kombat, who has an orange headband, which is a combination of Kenshi's red bandana and Scorpion's headband. That does not imply that Scorpion and Kenshi fucked and made Takeda, okay? Or Takeda, fuck. It's not what it implies. And, oh, they both got a scythe, but, like, it's because she wants to be like him. He doesn't have to be her father. Lovers-Quarrel shirt. This was a rather ill-conceived shirt Rooster Teeth released, which was part of the woman's collection, which was meant to be all romantic. This shirt is of Adam and Blake, with their faces not visible. As you can expect, it was a little bit controversial, because the shirt's topic was of an abusive relationship. Yeah, and it's an abusive relationship where the abuse victim murders the abuser. So, maybe not quite the kind of topic you want for the woman's collection. Or really just a shirt. Does anyone want a shirt of Adam and Blake? It is the most toxic relationship in RWBY. Carly's ears. This is Carly ear fuck porn on Pornhub. Don't watch it. I looked it up and then I did not even click. No, I don't want to see that. That is awful. And that was the iceberg. Did you have fun? Hopefully you learned something. Have a good day. Bye.